Captain Marcus Reed stood at the command center of Mining Station Omega 7, watching the endless red horizon of planet Kepler 442c through the reinforced windows. The mining outpost was small but efficient, housing 200 civilian workers and 50 military personnel on the outer rim of human space. Reed had been stationed here for 3 years, overseeing the extraction of rare, quantum crystals that powered most of humanity's advanced technology. The morning shift had just begun when Communications Officer Lisa Park burst into the command center, her face pale with worry. She carried a data tablet that trembled slightly in her hands as she approached Reed's workstation. "Captain, we've received an emergency transmission from the Arcturus colony," Park said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's fragmented and heavily encrypted, but what we could decode doesn't look good." Reed took the tablet and scrolled through the partial message. The words that appeared on screen made his blood run cold. The transmission spoke of crystalline ships descending from the void, energy beams that could slice through reinforced steel like paper, and colonists being harvested for some unknown purpose. The final decoded segment simply read, "They're coming for the minerals. God help us all." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief xenobiologist, entered the command center just as Reed finished reading. She had been studying the local ecosystem for potential threats since their arrival, but her expertise also extended to alien technology analysis. Her dark eyes immediately noticed the tension in the room. "What's happening?" she asked, approaching the central console where Reed and Park were huddled around the communication equipment. Reed handed her the tablet without a word. As Vasquez read the message, her expression grew increasingly grim. She looked up at Reed, with concern etched across her features. "If this is accurate, we need to start evacuation procedures immediately," she said. "An advanced alien species targeting mineral-rich colonies puts us directly in their path." Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the station's tactical officer, had been monitoring their conversation from his security station. He was a veteran of the Proxima border conflicts and had seen enough action to recognize genuine threat assessments. Morrison approached the group with determined steps. "Captain, with respect, evacuation might not be an option," Morrison said, pulling up a holographic display of the surrounding star systems. "Our nearest evacuation point is 6 days away at maximum. Burn. If these aliens have faster-than-light travel capabilities, they could intercept any fleeing ships." Reed studied the tactical display, his mind racing through possible scenarios. The outpost was positioned on Kepler 442c specifically because of its isolation and rich mineral deposits. Those same advantages now seemed like a death sentence if hostile aliens were systematically targeting such locations. Engineer Carlos Torres joined the discussion, having overheard the conversation from his workstation. Torres was responsible for maintaining all the mining equipment and had an intimate knowledge of the station's capabilities. His weathered hands gestured toward the industrial section of the outpost. "Captain, we've got more defensive capabilities than a standard colony," Torres said thoughtfully. "The mining lasers, if properly modified, could serve as weapons. The quantum crystal reserves could power enhanced shield systems. We're not completely helpless." Vasquez shook her head skeptically. "Against an unknown alien technology that can destroy entire colonies? We need more information before we start planning any kind of resistance." Reed made his decision quickly. "Park, send an immediate message to Colonial Command. Include all the data from the Arcturus transmission and request immediate support. Morrison, start a full tactical assessment of our defensive capabilities. Torres, begin discrete modifications to our mining equipment, make them look like routine maintenance. Vasquez, analyze everything we know about the alien technology described in that message." The team dispersed to their respective tasks, but the atmosphere in the command center remained tense. Reed returned to the observation windows, watching the mining operations continue below. Massive excavation machines moved slowly across the crystal fields, extracting the valuable minerals that had brought humanity to this distant world. Hours passed as the team worked frantically to prepare for an unknown threat, Morrison's tactical Analysis revealed that the outpost's location in a deep canyon provided some natural protection, but their conventional weapons were minimal. Torres reported that the mining lasers could indeed be weaponized, but they would need time to complete the modifications. Vasquez's analysis of the alien technology proved most disturbing. Based on the transmission fragments, she theorized that the attackers used some form of energy-based weaponry that could adapt to different materials. Their ships appeared to be constructed from living crystal, suggesting a technology far beyond current human understanding. As the day progressed, Reed found himself checking the long-range sensors every few minutes. The vast emptiness of space seemed more threatening now, full of potential dangers approaching from any direction. The red sun of Kepler 442c began its descent toward the horizon when the sensors finally detected something that made Reed's heart skip a beat. "Captain," Park called out urgently from her communication station. "I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions in Sector 7. Something big is coming out of hyperspace." Morrison immediately activated the station's alert systems. Warning. Lights bathed the command center in red as all personnel prepared for potential contact. The long-range sensors began painting a picture that confirmed their worst fears. 3 enormous vessels emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system, their hulls gleaming like living crystal as they reflected the distant starlight. Each ship was easily 10 times the size of the largest human vessel, with organic curves that suggested they had been grown rather than built. Energy readings from the alien ships were off the charts, indicating power sources beyond human comprehension. Torres rushed back to the command center, his face grim with realization. "Captain, those energy signatures are similar to our quantum crystals, but amplified 1,000-fold. If they're powered by the same materials we're mining... Vasquez completed his thought. "Then they're here for our reserves, just like the Arcturus colony." The alien ships began moving through the system with impossible grace, their crystal hulls pulsing with inner light. As they approached, Reed could see smaller craft detaching from the main vessels like deadly spores. The attackers were not just passing through. They were preparing for assault. Morrison's tactical display showed the approaching forces with terrifying clarity. "Captain, they're surrounding us. 3 directions of approach, multiple assault craft, and energy readings that suggest they could reduce this entire outpost to slag in minutes." Reed watched the alien armada position itself around their small outpost. The mining station that had been their home for 3 years now felt like a trap waiting to spring. But as he looked at his determined crew, Reed realized that humanity had not survived this long by surrendering to superior firepower. "All hands, this is Captain Reed," he announced over the station-wide communication system. "We are about to face an alien force of unknown capabilities. But we are not helpless, and we will not go quietly into the night. Prepare for contact." The 3 crystalline ships settled into position around the outpost, their hulls glowing brighter as weapon systems came online. In the vast emptiness of space, a small human mining station prepared to face an enemy that had already destroyed entire colonies. Reed gripped the command console tighter as he watched the alien ships complete their encirclement. Whatever happened next would determine not just the fate of mining station Omega 7, but possibly the future of human expansion into the Outer Rim territories. The communication system crackled to life with a sound unlike anything the crew of mining station Omega 7 had ever heard. The alien voice that emerged from the speakers was cold and mechanical, yet somehow organic at the same time. It spoke in perfect English, though the words carried an undertone that made everyone in the command center feel deeply uncomfortable. "Primitive human settlement. This is Overlord Kethver of the Veltar Collective," the voice announced with absolute authority. "You have 6 standard time units to evacuate this world and surrender all mineral extraction equipment. Compliance will result in swift departure. Resistance will result in total annihilation." Captain Reed exchanged glances with his senior staff. Dr. Vasquez was already analyzing the transmission, her equipment detecting complex energy patterns within the alien communication. Lieutenant Morrison had his hand hovering over the weapons. console, though their defensive capabilities seemed laughably inadequate against the massive ships surrounding them. "How are they speaking our language?" Park whispered, her fingers dancing across the communication controls as she tried to trace the signal's origin. "Advanced translation technology," Vasquez replied quietly. "But more concerning is how they knew to target us specifically. This isn't random. They've been monitoring human communications and tracking our mining operations." Reed stepped forward to the main communication console. Protocol dictated that first contact situations required careful diplomacy, but the aliens' ultimatum left little room for negotiation. Still, he had to try to understand their motivations and capabilities. "This is Captain Marcus Reed of Mining. Station Omega 7, he replied, keeping his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his stomach. "We are peaceful miners operating under colonial authority. What is your specific interest in this world?" The response came immediately, as if the alien had anticipated his question. "Your species wastes valuable energy resources through inefficient extraction and primitive technology. The Veltar Collective has perfected energy utilization across 17 star systems. This world's quantum crystal deposits will serve our expansion into your region of space." Through the observation windows, Reed could see one of the alien ships moving closer to the mining fields below. Its crystalline hull began to glow brighter, and suddenly a brilliant beam of energy lanced down from the vessel. The beam struck a nearby asteroid that had been designated for future mining, and the massive rock simply vanished in a flash of light. The demonstration of power was unmistakable. Morrison's tactical readings confirmed that the energy output from that single beam exceeded their entire station's power generation capability by a factor of 50. If the aliens wanted to destroy them, conventional resistance would be suicide. "As you can observe, our technology far exceeds your defensive capabilities," Overlord Kethver continued with what almost sounded like amusement. "The 17 civilizations that previously occupied worlds we required understood this reality. Your evacuation ensures minimal resource wastage during our mineral extraction process." Engineer Torres had been studying the energy readings from the alien demonstration. His weathered face showed confusion rather than fear as he approached Reed's position. "Captain, something doesn't add up about their power source," he said quietly. "The energy signature from that weapon beam matches our quantum crystals perfectly." Vasquez overheard Torres and immediately began cross-referencing her xenobiological scans with his engineering data. Her eyes widened as the implications became clear. The aliens aren't just using similar technology, they're using the exact same energy source. Their ships are powered by quantum crystals. Reed felt a spark of hope for the first time since the alien ships had appeared. If the Veltar technology depended on the same resources they were mining, there might be a way to level the playing field. But first, he needed more information about their capabilities and intentions. "Overlord Kethver, what happened to the other civilizations you mentioned?" Reed asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Efficient resource extraction requires minimal biological interference," the alien replied coldly. "Species that could not adapt to serve collective purposes were recycled into component materials. Your species shows potential for energy conversion processes, so evacuation remains an option." The casual mention of genocide sent chills through the command center. Morrison's face had gone pale, and Park was gripping her console so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The aliens weren't just conquerors. They were systematic exterminators who viewed other species as nothing more than raw materials. Reed made a decision that would determine the fate of everyone on the station. Instead of responding to the alien ultimatum, he activated internal communications to address his crew directly. "All hands, this is Captain Reed. The alien force has given us 6 hours to evacuate, but I need everyone to understand our situation clearly. These beings have destroyed 17 other civilizations and show no intention of allowing humanity to exist peacefully in this region. Evacuation is not survival, it's a temporary delay before total extermination." He paused, looking around the command center at the faces of people who had become like family during their 3 years together. However, our engineering analysis suggests their technology may have vulnerabilities we can exploit. I'm not ordering anyone to stay and fight. Any crew member who wants to attempt evacuation in the escape pods has my full support. But for those willing to make a stand, we might have a chance to hurt them badly enough to send a message to the rest of the galaxy. The response was immediate and unanimous. Not a single crew member moved toward the evacuation stations. Morrison stood straighter and began activating additional defensive systems. Torres headed for the mining equipment bay to continue his weapons modifications. Park started recording everything for potential transmission to Colonial Command. Vasquez began detailed scans of the alien ships to identify weak points. Reed reopened communications with the alien fleet. Overlord Kethvar, we decline your evacuation offer. This is our world and we will defend it. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. When the alien voice returned, it carried a note of genuine surprise. No civilization has refused collective ultimatums in over 200 rotations. Your species displays unprecedented irrationality. We call it courage, Reed replied firmly. Something your collective apparently eliminated from its component species long ago. Another of the alien ships moved closer to the station, its crystalline hull pulsing with threatening energy. Through the enhanced sensors, Reed could see movement within the transparent sections of the vessel. The aliens themselves were visible as tall, slender figures that seemed to be composed partially of the same crystal material as their ships. Your courage will be studied as we convert your biological matter into useful energy, Kethvar responded with cold finality. Collective assault forces will commence mineral extraction in 5-time units. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our adaptive shielding. As the communication ended, Morrison reported movement throughout the alien fleet. Smaller craft were detaching from the main ships and beginning descent toward the planet's surface. Each transport vessel carried energy signatures indicating significant military force. Torres returned from the mining bay with better news than expected. Captain, I've successfully converted 3 of the primary mining lasers into focused beam weapons. They won't penetrate those ship hulls, but they should be effective against ground forces. More importantly, I've discovered something interesting about our quantum crystal reserves. He pulled up a holographic display showing the station's power, grid, and mineral storage facilities. The crystals we've been mining have unique resonance properties in their raw form. If we can create a feedback loop using the aliens' own energy signatures, we might be able to overload their power systems. Vasquez added her analysis to Torres's discovery. The alien ships are essentially living creatures merged with crystalline technology. They absorb ambient energy to power their systems, which means they're constantly feeding off the energy around them. If we could create an energy environment they couldn't process, Reed began to see the outline of a desperate plan forming. The aliens expected primitive resistance from conventional weapons. They had adapted to defeat 17 other civilizations using overwhelming firepower and energy absorption capabilities. But they had never faced opponents who understood their technology well enough to turn it against them. How long do we have before their ground forces arrive? Reed asked Morrison. Based on their current descent rate, approximately 2 hours until the first wave reaches our position, Morrison replied, studying the tactical display intently. Reed looked around the command center one final time. His crew was preparing for a battle they couldn't win through conventional means, but their unconventional approach might give them the edge they needed. Then we have 2 hours to turn a mining station into a trap, he announced. The Viveltar Collective is about to learn that humanity doesn't surrender, and we don't die quietly. The first alien transport touched down in the crystal field surrounding Mining Station Omega-7 exactly 2 hours after Overlord Kethvar's ultimatum expired. Captain Reed watched from the command center as sleek, organic-looking craft settled onto the red soil like predatory insects. The ship's hulls opened with fluid grace, revealing the Veltar warriors within. The aliens were even more imposing than the sensor readings had suggested. Each warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall, with bodies that seemed to be a fusion of organic tissue and living crystal. Their armor appeared to grow from their skin rather than being worn, creating seamless protection that pulsed with inner energy. Most disturbing of all, their weapons were clearly part of their biology crystalline, projections that extended from their arms and crackled with deadly power. Thermal scans show approximately 200 hostiles in the first wave, Lieutenant Morrison reported from his tactical station. They're moving in perfect coordination toward our outer perimeter. No individual thinking patterns, they're operating as a collective consciousness. Dr. Vasquez studied the alien movements through her xenobiological scanners. Their energy signatures are incredibly high, but they're also completely uniform. It's like they're all connected to the same power source, sharing energy between individuals. As needed, Engineer Torres had spent the last 2 hours preparing their defensive positions throughout the mining station. The facility's layout provided several advantages: narrow corridors, multiple levels connected by maintenance shafts, and industrial equipment that could be used as cover or weapons. His modifications to the mining lasers were now complete, giving them 3 fixed defensive positions with serious firepower. Reed activated the station-wide communication system to address all personnel. All hands, the attack is beginning. Remember, we know this facility better than they do. Use that knowledge. Stay mobile, stay connected, and make every shot count. We're not just fighting for our lives, we're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity can't be easily conquered. The outer perimeter alarms began screaming as the Veltar warriors reached the station's defensive barriers. The humans had constructed simple energy shields around key entry points, powered by their quantum crystal reserves. These barriers wouldn't stop the aliens for long, but they would force the attackers to reveal their capabilities. The first alien warrior to reach the shields simply walked through them as if they didn't exist. The energy barrier flickered and died as the creature absorbed its power directly into its crystalline body structure. Within minutes, all outer defenses had been neutralized by the same method. "They're feeding on our defensive systems," Torres called out over the communication network. "The energy shields are just making them stronger." Morrison had positioned himself at the primary mining laser installation, which Torres had converted into a formidable weapon. As the first group of aliens entered the main corridor, he opened fire with a sustained beam that could cut through reinforced steel. The focused energy struck the lead warrior directly in the chest. The alien staggered but didn't fall. Its crystalline armor absorbed most of the beam's energy, though cracks appeared in the surface where the concentrated power had overwhelmed its defensive capabilities. More importantly, the creature's movements became sluggish, as if the energy absorption process required significant effort. Sustained fireworks. Morrison shouted over the combat communication channel. "They can absorb energy, but it slows them down. Hit them hard and keep hitting them." Reed had taken position in the central hub with Park and a team of civilian volunteers who had been trained in basic combat procedures. Their role was to coordinate the defense and provide mobile support wherever the aliens broke through. Through the security monitors, he could see Veltar warriors spreading throughout the facility with methodical precision. The alien strategy became clear within the first hour of fighting. They were systematically draining power from every system they encountered, growing stronger as they absorbed the station's energy reserves. But the humans had learned to use this against them by creating power draws that required the aliens to stay in vulnerable positions. Vasquez had discovered something crucial during her scans of the attacking force. "Captain, their energy absorption isn't perfect," she reported from her mobile scanner position. "When they take in too much power too quickly, their crystalline structures begin to resonate. If we could create an energy feedback loop," Torres was already implementing her suggestion. "I'm rerouting power through the secondary mining circuits. If I can create an overload situation when they try to absorb from multiple sources simultaneously." The battle raged through the facility's corridors and chambers. Human defenders used hit-and-run tactics, striking at alien warriors and then retreating through maintenance passages that were too narrow for the 8-foot-tall creatures. The Veltar responded by splitting their forces, sending smaller units Through ventilation systems and service tunnels, Reed found himself face to face with an alien warrior in the communications center. The creature moved with fluid grace despite its size, its bioweapon crackling with lethal energy. Reed dove behind a control console as a crystalline projectile shattered the wall where his head had been moments before. "Park, keep transmitting our tactical data to Colonial Command," he called out while moving to a better position. "If we don't survive this, at least our discoveries about their weaknesses will help other human colonies." The alien warrior advanced steadily, its energy weapon charging for another shot. Reed had only a standard pulse rifle, which seemed pathetically inadequate against the creature's armor. But as the alien rounded the console, Reed noticed something important. The creature's crystalline sections were glowing brighter as it absorbed energy from the damaged electronic equipment around them. Reed grabbed a power coupling from the damaged console and threw it directly at the alien's chest. The coupling contained a significant energy charge, and when it made contact with the creature's armor, the alien's entire body began to pulse with brilliant light. For a moment, the warrior seemed paralyzed by energy overload. Reed emptied his rifle's entire power pack into the stunned alien. The sustained barrage, combined with the energy overload from the power coupling, finally overwhelmed the creature's absorption capabilities. Cracks spread across its crystalline armor, and the alien collapsed with what sounded like a crystalline bell shattering. "Energy overload works?" Reed reported to the entire defensive network. "Hit them with multiple energy sources simultaneously. They can't process everything at once." Morrison had been forced to abandon his fixed position as alien warriors flanked his location through maintenance passages. Now he was leading a mobile team through the lower levels, using the mining equipment as improvised weapons. The industrial lasers designed for cutting through rock proved surprisingly effective against alien armor. When used at close range, the battle reached a critical point when the Veltar warriors began targeting the station's main reactor. If they absorbed enough energy from the primary power source, they would become nearly invincible. Torres realized this and made a desperate decision. "Captain, I'm shutting down the main reactor," he announced over the communication network. "If they absorb that much energy, we're finished anyway. But without main power, we'll be fighting in the dark with limited systems." Reed approved the decision immediately. "Do it. We'll fight them with whatever power we have left." The station plunged into emergency lighting as Torres initiated a controlled reactor shutdown. The sudden loss of available energy seemed to confuse the alien warriors, who had been growing stronger throughout the battle by absorbing power from human systems. Now they were forced to rely on their internal energy reserves. Vasquez made another crucial discovery as she monitored the aliens' energy patterns. "Their internal power is finite," she reported excitedly. "Without external energy sources to feed on, they're actually depleting their own reserves. Every weapon they fire, every movement they make, it's all drawing from limited internal power." The tide of battle began to shift as human defenders adapted their tactics to the new reality. Instead of trying to power up weapons and defenses, they began creating situations that forced the aliens to expend energy without providing new sources to absorb. Decoy systems, false power signatures, and energy traps became their primary weapons. Reed coordinated the new strategy from his position in the darkened command center. "All teams avoid using high-energy weapons. Force them to waste their power, hunting for energy sources that don't exist. Make them come to us." The Veltar warriors, accustomed to growing stronger during battles, found themselves in an unfamiliar situation. Their energy reserves were declining, their movements becoming less coordinated, and their weapons losing power. For the first time since the battle began, human defenders were gaining the upper hand, but Reed knew their advantage was temporary. The aliens still outnumbered them significantly, and more transport ships were visible descending from the orbiting fleet. If they were going to survive, they needed more than tactical victories. They needed to eliminate the threat entirely. Torres contacted Reed with a proposal that would change everything. "Captain, I think I know how to turn this entire battle around." but it's going to require shutting down life support and evacuating to the deepest mining levels. Reed looked around the command center at his exhausted crew. They had been fighting for hours, and despite their tactical successes, they were still vastly outnumbered. Whatever Torres had in mind, it represented their last chance for survival. "Explain quickly," Reed replied, watching as more alien warriors appeared on the security monitors. *****, Engineer Torres pulled up a holographic display of the mining station's underground structure, his weathered hands moving quickly across the control interface. The display showed the vast network of tunnels, processing chambers, and crystal storage areas that extended deep into the planet's crust. What he was proposing would either save them all or destroy everything they had built. "Captain, for the past 3 years we've been mining quantum crystals from the largest natural formation ever discovered," Torres explained urgently. "These tunnels aren't just storage areas, they're sitting on top of a massive crystal matrix that extends for kilometers underground. I can convert the entire network into a giant energy capacitor." Dr. Vasquez studied the geological scans Torres was displaying. Her expertise in xenobiology extended to understanding how alien technology interacted with natural energy sources. "The resonance frequencies would be incredible," she said with growing excitement. "If we could channel the aliens' own energy absorption capabilities into this network, we turn their greatest strength into their weakness," Reed finished, immediately grasping the implications. "But how do we get them into position without revealing our plan?" Lieutenant Morrison had been monitoring the tactical situation while Torres explained his proposal. The news was both encouraging and terrifying. "Captain, we've eliminated approximately 60% of the first assault wave, but sensors show 3 more transport ships approaching from the orbiting fleet. More concerning, their leader is coming down personally. Through the long-range scanners, they could see a larger alien vessel descending toward the mining station. Unlike the previous transports, this ship's hull glowed with intense internal energy. The being inside was clearly more powerful than the standard warriors they had been fighting." "Overlord Kethver is coming to finish this personally," Reed observed grimly. "Torres, how long do you need to prepare your energy trap?" 2 hours minimum," Torres replied, studying the complex modifications required. "I'll need to reroute every power conduit in the facility and create resonance points throughout the tunnel network. But Captain, once I start this process, there's no going back. If it fails, the feedback could destroy the entire planet." Reed looked around the command center at his exhausted crew. They had been fighting for hours against impossible odds, but their resistance had already exceeded anything the aliens expected. Now they had a chance to do more than just survive. They could send a message that would echo across the galaxy. "Begin preparations immediately," Reed ordered. "Morrison, start a strategic withdrawal to the deep tunnels. Make it look like we're retreating in defeat. Vasquez, I need you to monitor the alien energy patterns and help Torres calibrate the resonance frequencies. Park, prepare a final transmission to Colonial Command explaining what we're attempting." The next phase of their defense required careful acting. The remaining human defenders began what appeared to be a panicked retreat toward the lower levels of the mining station. They abandoned equipment, left obvious trails, and made enough noise to ensure the aliens would follow them into the tunnels. Torres worked frantically to modify the station's power systems. Every quantum crystal storage chamber needed to be converted into a resonance amplifier. The mining laser arrays had to be reconfigured to create precise energy patterns throughout the tunnel network. Most critically, he had to ensure that the trap would activate only when enough alien forces were in position. "The beauty of this plan is that they'll help us power it," Torres explained to Reed as they worked together in the main engineering section. "Every time they absorb energy from our systems, they'll be contributing to the resonance buildup. By the time they realize what's happening, it'll be too late to escape." Overlord Kethver's personal transport landed near the station's main entrance, with a ground-shaking impact. Through the security monitors, Reed could see the alien leader emerging from the crystalline vessel. Kethfer was easily twice the size of the standard warriors, his body a magnificent and terrifying fusion of organic tissue and living crystal that pulsed with incredible power. "Primitive humans, your resistance ends now," Kethfer's voice boomed. "Through the station's communication system. I will personally absorb the energy from your bodies to power our mining operations. Your defiance has been noted and will be eliminated." Reed keyed the general communication channel to respond, making sure his voice carried the right tone of desperation and defeat. "We're retreating to the mining tunnels. Your warriors are too powerful for our weapons. We surrender." The lie was perfectly delivered. Reed could see alien forces throughout the facility beginning to converge on the tunnel entrances. The standard warriors moved with renewed confidence, believing their victory was assured now that their leader had arrived. More importantly, they were following exactly the path Reed and Torres needed them to take. Morrison led the apparent retreat with military precision, ensuring that human defenders appeared to be fleeing in panic while actually moving to predetermined positions throughout the tunnel network. Each defender carried portable shield generators and emergency life support equipment that would protect them from the energy discharge Torres was preparing. "Vasquez, what are the alien energy readings showing?" Reed asked as they descended toward the deepest mining levels. "Incredible power concentrations," she replied, monitoring her scanners carefully. "Kethfer alone is generating energy signatures equivalent to our entire reactor output. When that much power enters the crystal matrix network," Torres completed her thought, "it'll create a resonance cascade that amplifies exponentially. The aliens' own energy absorption capabilities will force them to take in more power than their bodies can process." The first alien warriors entered the tunnel network 30 minutes after the retreat began. Reed watched through hidden cameras. As the creatures moved confidently through the passages, their crystalline bodies absorbing energy from every power conduit and electronic system they encountered. They had no idea they were charging the very trap that would destroy them. Kethfer himself entered the tunnels with ceremonial grandeur, his massive form filling the main passage as he advanced toward the deepest mining chambers where the humans appeared to be making their final stand. His energy absorption rate was extraordinary. Every step he took drained power from multiple systems simultaneously. "Energy buildup at 40%, Torres reported from his concealed monitoring station. "I need them deeper in the network before activation. The resonance has to reach critical mass throughout the entire tunnel system." Reed coordinated the final phase of their retreat, drawing the alien forces deeper into the crystal matrix network. Human defenders fired occasional shots to maintain the illusion of desperate resistance, always retreating further when the aliens advanced. The tunnel system's natural acoustics made their movements sound larger and more panicked than reality. "Captain, they're taking the bait perfectly," Morrison reported from his position near the main mining chamber. "Kethfer is leading a concentrated force of over 300 warriors directly into the deepest section of the network." Vasquez monitored the energy patterns with growing excitement and terror. "The quantum crystals are beginning to resonate in harmony. The alien's energy absorption is creating exactly the harmonic frequencies Torres predicted. It's working." Torres watched his instruments with intense concentration. The energy buildup was approaching the point of no return. Once the resonance cascade began, nothing could stop it from reaching every alien in the tunnel network. But timing was crucial. Activate too early and some aliens might escape. Too late and the cascade could become uncontrollable. Energy buildup at 75%, Torres announced. "All human personnel need to be in shielded positions within the next 10 minutes. Reed made the final preparations for what would either be humanity's greatest victory or their final act of defiance. The last human defenders moved into specially prepared chambers deep in the tunnel network, each one equipped with energy shields powered by isolated quantum crystal cells that were disconnected from the main resonance network. Through the monitoring cameras, Reed could see Kethfer approaching their position with absolute confidence. The alien leader's massive form glowed with absorbed energy as he prepared to personally eliminate the remaining human resistance. Behind him, hundreds of Veltar warriors filled the tunnel network, their combined energy signatures pushing Torres's cascade system toward critical mass. Energy buildup at 90%, Torres reported, his hand hovering over the activation controls. Captain, once I trigger this sequence, we have approximately 30 seconds before the cascade reaches maximum intensity. Everyone needs to be sealed in the shielded chambers. Reed took one last look at the tactical display showing alien forces throughout the tunnel network. 3 years of mining operations had created a vast underground complex that was now filled with enemies who had no idea they were standing in the middle of humanity's most elaborate trap. All personnel, final positions now, Reed ordered over the communication network. Torres, on my mark, activate the resonance cascade. Kethvar's voice echoed through the tunnels as he approached the main mining chamber. Humans, your primitive resistance ends now. Prepare to join the 17 civilizations that learned the price of defying the Veltar Collective. Reed waited until he could see the alien leader's massive form through the chamber's entrance. Hundreds of warriors surrounded their position, their crystalline bodies glowing with absorbed energy. The trap was perfectly set. Torres, activate the cascade now. Reed commanded. Asterisk, 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 Engineer Torres pressed the activation sequence with steady hands. Despite knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of every living being on planet Kepler 442c, the resonance cascade began as a barely perceptible humming sound that seemed to emanate from the crystalline walls themselves. Within seconds, that hum grew into a deep, thrumming vibration that shook dust from the tunnel ceilings. Cascade initiated, Torres reported through the communication network. Energy feedback building exponentially. All shielded positions. Maintain complete isolation from the main network. Captain Reed watched through the monitoring cameras as the first effects of the cascade became visible. The quantum crystal formations throughout the tunnel network began to glow with increasing intensity, their natural luminescence amplified by the resonance frequencies Torres had created. The aliens, still confident in their overwhelming superiority, initially showed no concern about the phenomenon. That changed when Overlord Kethvar suddenly stopped advancing toward the main mining chamber. The massive alien leader's crystalline body segments began pulsing erratically as the resonance frequencies interfered with his energy absorption capabilities. For the first time since the battle began, uncertainty crept into his movements. What primitive technology is this? Kethvar's voice boomed through the tunnels, but Reed could detect a note of concern that hadn't been there before. Collective warriors maintain advancement protocols. Dr. Vasquez monitored the alien biosignatures from her shielded position, watching in fascination as the cascade effects spread throughout the Veltar force. Their energy absorption systems are becoming overwhelmed, she reported excitedly. The resonance is forcing them to process exponentially increasing amounts of power. The tunnel network had become a massive trap that used the aliens' greatest strength against them. Every warrior in the passages was unconsciously absorbing energy from the resonating crystal formations, but the cascade meant that energy was building faster than their bodies could process it. Their crystalline biology evolved to efficiently absorb and utilize energy was becoming a fatal weakness. Lieutenant Morrison watched the tactical displays as alien movements throughout the tunnel network became increasingly erratic. Captain, they're trying to retreat, but the cascade is affecting their coordination. Some units are moving in circles, others have stopped responding to commands entirely. The resonance frequency reached a critical threshold, and suddenly the effect became dramatically visible. Alien warriors throughout the tunnel network began to glow with the same intensity as the crystal formations around them. Their bodies, designed to absorb and channel energy, were being forced to process amounts of power that exceeded their biological limits. Energy cascade at 120% and climbing, Torres announced, his voice tense with concentration. The feedback loop is self-sustaining now. Even if they tried to stop absorbing energy, the resonance would force it into their systems. Reed could see Kethver's massive form convulsing as the alien leader struggled against forces beyond his comprehension. The creature that had casually destroyed asteroids and conquered 17 civilizations was being overwhelmed by his own evolutionary advantages turned against him. Impossible! Kethver's voice crackled through the communication system, distorted by energy interference. No primitive species possesses such understanding of crystalline energy matrices. The collective has absorbed the knowledge of thousands of worlds, but you never absorb the knowledge of how to turn your own technology into a weapon, Reed replied through the tunnel communication system. That's something uniquely human. We don't just use our tools, we understand them well, enough to break them when necessary. The cascade reached critical mass throughout the entire tunnel network. Alien warriors began collapsing as their crystalline body segments overloaded with energy. The sight was both terrible and magnificent. Beings that had seemed invincible were being destroyed by the very power that made them dangerous. Torres monitored the cascade progression with growing amazement and horror. Captain, the energy feedback is propagating beyond the tunnel network. It's following their bioenergy signatures back to the ships in orbit. Through the long-range sensors, Reed could see impossible readings from the 3 massive Veltar vessels orbiting the planet. The crystalline hulls that had seemed so beautiful and deadly were now pulsing with the same overloaded energy signatures as the warriors in the tunnels. The entire fleet is connected through some kind of energy network, Vasquez observed, studying the readings with scientific fascination despite the mortal danger. When we overloaded the ground forces, we created a feedback loop that's propagating through their entire collective consciousness. Kethver made one final attempt to escape the cascade, his massive form lurching toward the tunnel entrance. But the energy overload had disrupted his motor functions, and he collapsed near the main mining chamber. His final words carried a tone of disbelief that an advanced collective could be defeated by such primitive opponents. The collective will ... learn from this failure. Kethver struggled to speak as energy arced across his crystalline armor. Other worlds will know of human ... impossibility. Let them know, Reed replied grimly. Let the entire galaxy know that humanity doesn't surrender and we don't die quietly. The alien leader's form convulsed one final time before the energy cascade overwhelmed his massive power reserves. Overlord Kethver, conqueror of 17 worlds, was destroyed by the same energy that had made him seemingly invincible throughout the tunnel network. The remaining Veltar warriors suffered the same fate. Their bodies evolved to perfection, for energy manipulation could not survive the cascade's exponential power buildup. Within minutes, the passages that had been filled with deadly alien soldiers contained only crystalline debris that glowed with residual energy. Torres watched his instruments as the cascade effects continued propagating beyond the planet. Captain, the feedback is reaching the orbiting ships. Energy readings are off the charts. Through the observation ports in their shielded chambers, the human survivors could see brilliant flashes of light in the starfield above. The 3 massive Veltar vessels, marvels of crystalline technology that had terrorized countless worlds, were being torn apart by energy cascades originating from their own power systems. The ships are breaking apart, Park reported, monitoring what communications traffic she could detect. I'm receiving automated distress signals, but they're cutting off one by one. Reed watched through the sensors as the alien fleet was systematically destroyed by the very technology that had made them masters of space. The beautiful crystalline hulls shattered like glass, their organic curves distorting as internal energy cascades tore them apart from within. The cascade effects gradually diminished as the energy sources that had fed them were exhausted. The tunnel network fell silent except for the gentle humming of quantum crystals returning to their natural resonance frequencies. The alien threat that had seemed unstoppable was completely eliminated. All clear, Torres announced after checking the energy readings throughout the facility. The cascade has run its course. All alien biosignatures have been neutralized. Reed emerged from his shielded chamber to survey the aftermath of their desperate gambit. The tunnel network showed obvious signs of the energy cascade's scorch. Marks on the walls, crystalline formations that glowed more brightly than before, and scattered debris that had once been alien warriors. Casualties? Reed asked Morrison as the tactical officer conducted a personnel count. Remarkably light, considering what we've been through, Morrison replied with evident relief. 12 wounded, none critically. The shielded chambers protected everyone from the cascade effects. Vasquez was already analyzing the remains of the alien technology scattered throughout the tunnels. The cascade transformed their crystalline biology into an inert form, she observed. Whatever energy matrices powered their collective consciousness have been permanently disrupted. Reed climbed to the surface to assess the overall damage to their mining operation. The facility had suffered significant damage during the battle, but the main infrastructure remained intact. More importantly, they had survived an encounter with a force that had destroyed 17 other civilizations. Park had been monitoring communications from Colonial Command since the battle ended. "Captain, I'm receiving priority transmissions from Fleet Headquarters. Word of our situation has reached the highest levels of government." Reed wasn't surprised. The destruction of an entire alien fleet by a single mining outpost would certainly attract attention from Colonial Command. But he was more concerned about the implications for future human expansion into space. "What's our communication status with other human colonies?" Reed asked. "Full network connectivity restored," Park replied. "I've been transmitting our complete tactical analysis and technical specifications for the resonance cascade to all Colonial Command databases," Reed nodded with satisfaction. The most important aspect of their victory wasn't the survival of Mining Station Omega 7, it was the knowledge they had gained about alien technology and the proof that humanity could defend itself against seemingly superior forces. Torres approached Reed with a final report on the facility's status. "Captain, the quantum crystal formations have been permanently altered by the cascade. They're no longer suitable for standard energy applications, but they might have other uses we haven't discovered yet." "And the planet itself?" Reed asked, concerned about long-term environmental effects. "Stable," Torres assured him. The cascade was contained within the crystalline formations, no lasting damage to the planetary ecosystem. Reed looked up at the star field where the alien fleet had been destroyed. Debris from the Veltar vessels was already spreading through the system, creating a monument to humanity's first major victory against an advanced alien civilization. 6 months later, Colonial Command established a permanent military research station at the site of Mining Station Omega 7. The facility became a center for studying alien technology and developing new defensive systems based on the resonance cascade principle. Reed remained as commanding officer, overseeing research that would eventually revolutionize human space defense. The story of the mining station that destroyed an entire alien fleet spread throughout human space and beyond. Other species in the galaxy began to take notice of the small bipedal creatures, who had turned their technological disadvantages into victory against a collective that had conquered 17 worlds. Reed often stood at the observation windows, watching research teams study the crystalline formations that had saved them all. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity. They were not just another primitive species to be conquered and absorbed. They were innovators, survivors, and when pushed to the edge, they were utterly dangerous to anyone who underestimated their determination to remain free. The Veltar collective was marked extinct in galactic databases, with a simple notation that would be studied by xenobiologists for generations. Cause of extinction: contacted humanity.